Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I wanted to briefly do a little bit of a prospect breakdown for some of the top Cincinnati Bearcats players that will be playing in the Orange Bowl today on ESPN at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time against Alabama. I think it's kind of obvious people expect Alabama to win this game, but the Bearcats have a lot of ample talent. And I want to shine a light on some of these great players they have, because we're going to see a lot of these guys go into the 2022 draft, hopefully, because there's just a lot of really good players on this team. So I'm writing an article for this right now. It'll be up in a few minutes. I might even post the link to it down below, so you want to see that and just read it for yourself in your own time. You can go down, scroll down, and click on the link, and check out the actual post itself. Or I might do two posts, one for the offense, one for the defense. We'll see. Let's start off with Desmond Ridder. Obviously, it starts with the quarterback. Ridder is a versatile, true senior, finishing off his most productive college season. The Kentucky native. He played 65.9% of his passes for 3,190 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions this season. He's the second Bearcat to pass for 10,000 yards in a career in college. Ridder possesses NFL size, and he's a threat on the ground at 6'4", 215 pounds. The former three-star recruit has 2,185 rushing yards and 28 rushing touchdowns during his career. However, he was noticeably less impactful as a runner this year than he was in the past. And while Ridder has cut down his turnover-worthy plays throughout his college career, he still has some issues with accuracy and ball placement that noticeably show up in some big games. And if you're wondering what I'm reading it off. I'm just reading off of what I wrote because I actually like what I wrote, so I'm going to read most from there, which is why I say you can go ahead and check out the actual articles in the links below. It's free to read. There's no charge or anything like that. Alec Pierce, wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bearcats. He's 6'3", 213 pounds. Pierce isn't a true burner, but he has enough speed to threaten defenses vertically. He's starred as the top receiver at Cincinnati this year, amassing 50 receptions on 78 targets for 867 yards and 8 touchdowns. Pierce primarily lined up out wide, spending under 15% of his snaps in the slot. Quarterbacks average a depth of target over 17 yards downfield when targeting Pierce in 2019 and 2021. Proving his capabilities as a deep threat, the former three-star recruit is tremendous in contested catch situations, hauling in over 45% of his 53 contested catch opportunities over the past 4 years. He's a handful for most defensive backs because of his size and because he has solid but not excellent speed and route running ability. Josh Wiley, tight end, 6'6", 245 pounds. Wiley is a fourth-year junior with 2 seasons of full-time starting experience. He's never posted eye-popping numbers, but the Ohio native is an excellent security blanket for Desmond Ridder. Wiley has 25 receptions for 320 yards and 6 touchdowns this season. He also had 6 touchdowns last year, and he has 6 games with at least 30 receiving yards this season. Wiley struggled with drops early on this year as he worked through some injury issues, but he's usually a sure-handed option. He's only dropped 3 passes over the past 2 years, during which he's caught 53 of 73 targets. Jerome Ford, running back, 5'11", 220 pounds. Ford is a junior finishing his 4th year in college football. The powerful Florida native spent his first 2 seasons with Alabama before transferring to Cincinnati in 2020. He played second fiddle to future Miami Dolphins draft choice Jared Dokes last year before taking over the lead role this season. Ford amassed 1,242 yards and 19 touchdowns on just 200 carries in his total appearances this year, including a 2-touchdown, 187-yard performance against Houston in the AAC championship game. Ford used his large frame to tally over 600 yards after contact this season, putting him in roughly the same area statistically as Oregon's Travis Dye, Texas A&M CJ Spiller, or Arizona State's Chad White. Despite his size, Ford has a second gear to explode through holes and create long touchdowns or long yardage plays. Ford's 31 runs of 10 or more yards this season tied him with other 2022 prospects such as Zach Charbonnet of UCLA, Spiller again from Texas A&M, and Sincere quarterback from UTSA. So those are the offensive guys for Cincinnati. Only a couple of them, but on the defense we have a lot more. So the offensively we covered, I believe, 4 players. Defense we cover 8, and it's a talented group. Beginning up front, because everyone knows about Ahmad Gardner in the secondary, but I want to start with the defensive line, working my way back. Interior defensive lineman Curtis Brooks, he's 6'2", 285 pounds, so a bit of an undersized guy. It'll be interesting to see how he handles Alabama's larger offensive front today in the game. But Curtis Brooks overall is a highly underrated prospect and an overlooked player who really played a crucial role in helping Cincinnati establish one of the better defenses in the nation this season. Brooks is a 5th-year senior from Virginia. He's played over 200 defensive snaps in every year with the Bearcats, including 1,330 in the past 3 years. Brooks always made an impact in the run game, but he's taken his pass rushing abilities to a new level this year, largely coinciding with more snaps in the E-gap for him this season than in the past. Brooks finished the year with 50 tackles, 12.5 tackles for loss, a forced fumble, and 7.5 sacks. Those are all career highs. He also set a career high with 38 pressures when his previous was only 18. He has 5 games with 4 or more pressures in 2021. Like I said, doesn't possess ideal size for an interior defensive lineman, but if he puts up good tape against Alabama's offensive line, that could certainly help his draft stock. Najee Sanders, everyone knows this guy. 6'5", 255 pounds. Sanders is a true senior coming off 3 productive seasons that likely make him worth a top 60 selection in the upcoming draft. He doesn't pack as much power as some of the other top players in this draft class. No, like guys like Aiden Hutchinson, maybe even Kayvon Thibodeau to some extent. But nonetheless, he's actually might be more polished in the sense of that he's developed a pretty good number of pass rushing skills, so he's helped himself out quite a bit in that area. Sanders recorded 34 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, 5 passes to defense, and 2.5 sacks this year, while his sack totals look abysmal compared to the past couple of years, where he had 7 last year, and I believe 4 in 2020. Or 4 in 2019, Sanders still amassed plenty of pressures. He went from tallying 32 pressures in 2019 to 44 in 2020 and 51 this season. Despite his length, Sanders struggled to finish tackles over the past 2 years. He's missed over 25% of his tackle attempts during that time. And again, I view him as a solid day 2 kind of guy. Either like anywhere from really top of the second round to maybe top of the third round. Darian Beavers, linebacker, 6'4", 255 pounds. Beaver is a 5th-year senior who transferred to Cincinnati in 2019 after 2 seasons with UConn. Unlike transfers from on defense, who we'll talk about later on, Beavers saw playing time immediately. He's played just over 1,790 defensive snaps since joining the Bearcats. Joe Marino from the Draft Network compared Beavers to Tulsa's Zayvon Collins, who went in last year's draft as a first-round pick. He's a physically imposing player with a mix of linebacker and edge rusher traits that are ideally suited for stopping the run and working off offensive linemen as they climb to the second level. However, Beavers held his own coverage this year, running just 22 receptions for 181 yards and no touchdowns on 31 targets. That's 8.2 yards per reception. I'm going to assume most of those were against running backs and tight ends and those sorts of players. Beavers finished the year with 88 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 2 passes to defense, and an interception. This is a guy who I had trouble placing in terms of where he's going to go in the draft, but Beavers could go anywhere from, I would say, 3rd round to maybe like 6th round. It's really quite a wide range for him. Joel DeBlanco, I believe I say his last name, if I'm getting that pronunciation right. 6'3", 240 pounds. He's a 5th-year senior for the Bearcats. This is the first season he's played over 600 defensive snaps with the program, but the Washington native still earned first-team all-conference honors alongside 6 fellow Bearcat defenders. DeBlanco finished 2021 with 106 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, and an interception. He's excellent coming downhill against the run, but could struggle in coverage. He played only 220 coverage snaps this season, allowing 12 receptions on 13 targets. So that's going to be something Cincinnati will have to scheme against when they play Alabama later today. They don't want to put him in coverage reps against some more talented and versatile Alabama players. All right, the one everyone's been waiting for, Ahmad Gardner, the cornerback, 6'3", 200 pounds. Sauce Gardner is one of the nation's top 3 cornerbacks this year. The junior terrified offenses this season. He only faced 36 targets despite playing 448 coverage snaps. On those 36 targets, Gardner allowed 17 receptions for 117 yards and no touchdowns. He finished the year with 35 tackles, 3 sacks, 4 passes defensed, and 3 interceptions. Gardner is one of the most physically imposing cornerbacks in the 2022 class. He's an excellent tackler and he's an ideal fit for a press coverage scheme. We'll see how he handles Jameson Williams' speed in today's matchup, and hopefully we get a good number of reps between those 2 guys going at each other. It will really tell us a lot about Gardner and about Jameson Williams as well, and where they should rank in this coming draft. Gardner, in terms of just pure productivity, was a top 3 corner in college football this year, and he's had excellent ball production throughout his entire college career. The other cornerback, Kobe Bryant, 6'1", 198 pounds. Bryant won the Jim Thorpe Award, which is given to the nation's top defensive back this year. The 5th-year senior from Ohio played at least 680 snaps in each of the past 4 years. With Cincinnati, his 3,240 defensive snaps with the Bearcats make him one of the team's most experienced players. probably the most experienced player I'm willing to bet. Bryant tallied 40 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 11 passes defense, and 3 interceptions this year to go along with the defensive touchdown. Offenses targeted Bryant 70 times, which makes it nearly twice as many as Gardner, but he only allowed 31 receptions for 442 yards and 3 touchdowns. All right, two more players. Safety Brian Cook, 6'1", 210 pounds. Cook is a 5th-year player who transferred to Cincinnati in 2019 after 2 seasons at Howard. He finished 2021 with 87 tackles, a sack, 9 passes defense, and an interception. Cook spent roughly 330 of his 823 defensive snaps in the box this year and played over 180 snaps in the slot and that traditional free safety role this year as well. He played under 250 defensive snaps during his first 2 years with the Bearcats, but since guys have gone on to the NFL, like James Wiggins, who was a safety, got drafted last year by Arizona, he's taken on a larger role. Cook surrendered 176 yards on 20 receptions. That's about 8.8 yards per reception and 0 touchdowns in 417 coverage reps this year. And the last player, safety Javon Hicks, 6'2", 205 pounds. Hicks is a true senior in his 4th year with the Bearcats. He's gained significant experience filling in for James Wiggins when the future Arizona Cardinal draft pick missed 2019 with an injury. Hicks has over 2,000 defensive snaps at Cincinnati, including over 850 in 2019 and 2021. Hicks split his snaps almost evenly between the box, slot, and free safety roles in 2019, but he's by far spent the most time at free safety over the past 2 years. He finished 2021, with 48 tackles, 3 passes defense, and 2 interceptions. Hicks amassed 5 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and 4 fumble recoveries in his more dynamic role 2 years ago. He allowed over 50 receiving yards in 1 game this season and surrendered 3 touchdowns in 442 coverage snaps. And that is Cincinnati's basically pride and joy. If you're a Bearcats fan, or if you're rooting for the Bearcats, you have to focus on that defense to really hold Alabama, hopefully below. I mean, if you hold them below 28 points, it'd be a huge win. I think you have to focus more on just holding them below 35 points and hoping your offense can kind of keep pace to some extent. I know people are kind of betting on Cincinnati to cover the spread, and that's kind of as far as they're willing to go. I think the spread was just over 2 touchdowns, I believe, or maybe it was 2 touchdowns exactly. And people are betting maybe that far, but they're not willing to say Cincinnati will win outright. So I don't know. If you're the Bearcats, you really have to hope that defense holds up well, especially in the secondary, that they're able to match up well against guys like Jameson Williams and kind of shut them down. Because you do have 4 future NFL players in that secondary. You got some guys up front who are good. The linebacking group as well produced a lot of guys who are all conference selections. So you have to hope that that unit matches up well with Alabama. And on offense, just don't make any stupid plays. Just keep the ball moving. I think that Alec Pierce will have some favorable matchups outside against smaller defensive backs for Alabama. It'd be interesting to see if Jordan Battle gets any coverages over the top on him. I'll be interested to see how that goes. Josh Job's obviously going to be out there. That'll be an interesting matchup as well, with Josh Jobe being in corner for Alabama. But really, I want to see the trenches battle. I want to see the battle between Alabama's offensive line and the defensive front for Cincinnati. And on the reverse side, I want to see how Cincinnati's offensive line, which has a couple American selections, but not many all-conference selections as well, not many future NFL players on it. I want to see how they match up against a loaded Alabama defensive front. But hopefully we'll get a good game, and I'll talk to you guys all later.